Hello, and welcome to the Cereal Sewist Knitter podcast, a podcast about knitting and sewing. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I appreciate you checking me out. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. This episode is going to be a little bit different to some of the other episodes that you have seen. So I am going to talk through a little bit of my process behind how I landed on the colors that I landed on for the Explorer Knits update. So I think it was beginning of September, end of August. Ali from Explorer Fibre Knits had a shop update that related to her Ireland collection, which was a really beautifully hand-dyed collection that was variegated and tonals. And I missed out on the update from the beginning of the year and really wanted to get a color or two or three, but actually have a project in mind for them. So this episode is going to talk through that process, a little bit about why I wanted to approach things that way, and I'll also actually show you the process that I went through. I'll give you a bit of a preview of what that looked like as well. So for the benefits of consistency, my name's Patricia. I am recording on Dharug Country, and I acknowledge that these lands were never ceded by the First Nations people. Now, I am organizing my thoughts. So, as I mentioned, I wanted to do something a little bit different, which explained a little bit of the background process that relates to how I picked the colors that I landed on and the designs to use with the colors of the yarn that I was pre-ordering from the Explorer Fibre Knits Ireland collection. Now, the reason I wanted to do this is because I had observed that I was having the tendency to just buy sweaters quantity in colors that I really liked, that were visually appealing, that had a point of interest. And I got to the point where I was looking at Ali's colors from Explorer Fibre Knits, and I wanted all of them. And realistically, with the current exchange rate, as well as the fact that it would have been a bit irresponsible of me, I wanted to make sure I was a bit more considered and slowed down with my thinking behind what colors did I really like and which ones was I really gravitating towards. So what I'm going to do is show you my current Pinterest board, and I'll walk you through what that looks like. I will walk you through the pins that I created from the story images where I overlaid certain yarn colors over certain knitwear designs and how I got to that point, as well as how I decided on those colors. Whilst I love things like pastels and rainbows, and I love looking at them, they inspire a lot of joy, they're not really color combinations that I wear. And that's because my aesthetic and my overall style and my wardrobe is quite, I think of it as multifaceted, because I can use it for a formal occasion, I can use it for work, and I can use it for casual. And I try and make sure that each piece that makes it in can be rotated in that way. Now, a lot has to do with how I pair footwear, how I pair accessories, how I do makeup, and that helps me take something from super casual to very dressed up. So within that spectrum, I wanted to make sure that whatever colors I got from Ali were going to fit within that kind of arrangement. Now, granted, some things can never truly be fancy formal wear, but some things can. And so as long as it worked for wearing to the office, to give you an idea, I do work in a very corporate setting, and I do push boundaries when it comes to what is corporate wear. So I do things like introduce Dr. Martens into work. I do introduce some more casual looking tops, but I dress them up based on the other items that I'm wearing. So it needed to fit within that requirement for me. So on top of that, as I mentioned, was spending too much on things that didn't have a plan. And you'll see that there'll be another video that I'm going to put up, which talks through like my project planning as well. So you get a bit more of a glimpse into that in that episode. For this episode, it is specific to the Explorer Fibre Knits update and the colors that I landed on. So like I said, I'll walk you through my Pinterest. I will show you a little bit about my Ravelry favorites library, just to give you a bit of a glimpse of what I've been gravitating towards and what I kind of thought through in terms of what could I use casually as well as for work. And then ultimately how I ended up to where I ended up, which if you'd been following me on Instagram, you would have seen I ended up with the, I always get the name wrong. Give me a second. I ended up with the Amy Slipover, which is a Sandnes Garn pattern that is, here's a version I prepared earlier, not really, that is available in the 2002 Sandnes Garn, it doesn't say what volume, in this version. So if you can get your hands on this is where the Amy Slipover pattern is available. This is the German and English version, so just be mindful of that unless you're going to end up with something that is not in a language you may be able to read and you'll need to Google Translate. So this is the Amy Slipover. So this is the first pattern that I landed on, and this image is what sold it for me. It was the ability to layer it. It was the ability to wear it with like combat boots, or dress it up with an ankle boot, or dress it up with a heel, depending on what else I was combining it with. So it's number one. Number two is the Glynn Pullover. And I will put the details of both of these in the description below so that you can easily find them as well. So the Glynn Pullover is, I'll put an image here. It is a sweater, but it has this really beautiful detail at the waist where it has like a tie. And so it almost looks like a wrap sweater, even though it's not. And the way the design photos have been styled is quite lovely and quite versatile. So again, based on what I've just run through in terms of versatility, utility, as well as aesthetic, those are some of the key things that tend to frame how I perceive a pattern and how I pick a pattern, and also how I pick my colors. So without any further delay, I will get into the actual showing of the Pinterest, Ravelry, and ultimately the colors that I landed on for the pre-order. And hopefully gives you a bit of a glimpse into the behind the scenes thought process and time that is invested before I go into a pre-order. I'm trying to do this more actively and to be consistent about it. And I think showing that might help inspire you. You might have tips to share as well. So I'm always keen to hear what those are. So please do feel free to comment or chat with me on Instagram. I'm always happy to have a chat. And yeah, let me know what you think. Maybe you enjoy seeing a bit more of the process rather than just the showing of it. Oh, here it is. And if you do, then I might think about doing another one for a subsequent pre-order in future. So before I landed on the Explorer Knits colours, I kind of took a look at all of my pins because they all will tell me something about colour themes, styles, aesthetic that I'm gravitating towards, and then I can use that to inform how I pick a colour. So you can see here, like, I'm very much about the crayon dressing. I do love a bit of a, I know it sounds weird, like a sea of beige and different beiges, and I'm getting more into wearing those types of neutrals. So I really love this look, which is why it's been saved in my capsule wardrobe board, because those are things that I'd like to eventually tick off. You can see there's a dark tones, dark neutrals, reference shots from the 70s in terms of jean cuts that I like. You can see the balloon sleeve sweater that I talked about in one of my last episodes. Lots of satin, silk, but generally you can see there's a lot of black, there's grey, there's neutral pinks, there's true navies, which I love this. There is a little bit of beige, and I call that like a caramel brown. So you get the idea. There's a lot of, I think of the cuts and the styles as effortlessly chic, and I say that because I can just put on the two items. I don't have to think about anything else, and because of the texture of the fabric or the knitwear and the cut of the item, you look, I feel like you look polished, and that's a look that I quite enjoy, and it jumps out to me. So with this in mind, you can see I have my Glynn pullover as a pin. So I created this using Instagram. What I essentially did was I grabbed the pattern photo from Ravelry and I used it to create a story, and there's a function in Instagram that lets you overlay an image on top of the base image for your story, which is what I did using the Explorer Knit Fibres colorway that I landed on. And then I created a pin so I wouldn't lose it. And I did the same with the Amy slipover. So how did I get to here? Well, like I just walked you through, it was very much to do with what colors do I mostly have in my wardrobe? And are there any similar tones that Explorer Knits is going to be releasing that's going to work for what I'm predominantly investing in and creating for me? So I really gravitated towards a pin where there's a woman wearing a mini skirt with an oversized knit. I really love this. I like the peaking of the mini skirt and the oversized knit on top, or the long knit on top with the stockings. So I really wanted to have a piece in my wardrobe that helped me achieve that with a bit of a twist. So that led me to the Amy slipover, which is a Sandnes Garn pattern. So you can see it's quite oversized. You can make it as long as you'd like it, and you can layer it. So this is what convinced me that I wanted this in my wardrobe for use. And so then it came down to colors. So if I go to the Explorer Knits and Fibres, and where is it? The Ireland collection. So I initially wanted all of these. I thought they were all beautiful. They all feature something unique about Ali's talent. But realistically and financially, that just wasn't going to be a smart decision for me. So I was gravitating towards this at one point with all the depths of the browns in it. I even gravitated a little bit towards Killarney National Park and Muckross, which is not really a green I gravitate towards. This to me is like a mustardy yellow green, and I don't have anything of that color in my wardrobe. Same with this. This is beautiful, but I don't have anything of this color in my wardrobe. Not that it couldn't be combined with something, but I was also really in love with this, which is woodruff, and woolly, which is the other light tonal, and obsessed with Murphy's Brown Bread. So I showed this to my partner and asked him, essentially, do you see me wearing this color? And pretty much said, no, you don't own anything beige. It is beautiful. It's beautiful to look at, but I don't know if you'll wear it, even if you've made it. So that caused me to rethink what I was going to do. So I really wanted, like I mentioned before, a signature color, and I wanted to be able to wear it in a way that suited the rest of my wardrobe, and I also wanted to make it a little bit special. So that is how I landed on the Cliffs of Mohair, and sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. The Cliffs of Mohair variegated colorway, because when I saw this knit up, it was just stunning. You can see it in the pin over here. Let me just go back. So here you can see it knit up, looks quite beautiful. And so I wanted to keep this fabric look, but also this had to be held with mohair or brush suri. And I really liked this navy tonal that Ali was also releasing, and I thought they would be paired perfectly together, because you can see it's almost like a bluey grey, which meant it was going to even up the colour of the variegation and almost give it like a mould effect. So I think that's going to look quite nice. If that does not work, that is okay, because what I can ultimately do is find a mohair that's of a similar shade to what's in here, and there are many commercial yarn companies that will have a whole array of colours, and then I can use that to pair it with this, because this is meant to be my highlighted colour for the slipover. So you can see there's a little bit of marling here as well. Not a lot, if I just zoom in. So it would work, and it would achieve a similar look without just being a plain black or grey slipover. So that's how I landed on this, held together with the Skeleg brush suri. And you can see now that you've got these dark navies together. I go back to my board, and it would complement and combine with a lot of what I've been gravitating towards. Mini skirt, I have black pants, so you can already see that mentally I've gone through and combined a few outfits ahead of the decision on the colour. The next was finding something for the My Guinness colourway. So I knew I liked this. I knew that Cliffs of Mohair was quintessential Ali, and I also knew that this purpley brown was quintessential Ali as well. So I really wanted something that I could wear that would let the colour speak. And so what I did was went through my favourites. I don't own all of these, by the way, they're just my favourites, and I've bundled them into groups, which I only did recently, and I took took a while. So I was scrolling through seeing what did I feel like making? What was I curious about? What did I absolutely know I could combine in my wardrobe with some of my other pieces? And that's where I landed on the Glynn pullover. I've just seen this pop up before. It's really beautiful. You can see the styling of this is beautiful as well. Like they've paired it with two different skirts, and it just works. And I love a high-waisted pant or a skirt, so this length for me was perfect. And I really enjoy the wrap detail that exists here. I think that's quite unique. So it's elegant. I can pair it with a lot of things. I can layer it with a coat. I can wear it on its own. It was hitting all the usual requirements for me on a pattern, and I knew that this color would look beautiful in it. So I acquired this in the DK, which is what this pattern calls for. And that's ultimately how I landed on it. The only thing that I didn't have a planned project for was the Irish Goodbye, where I did get this in fingering sweaters quantity. And I know that I can get this green or similar green, shaded green, in a mohair from a commercial yarn, a supplier at a more affordable price point for me, to pair with this so that I can get a petite knits out of it, or a lento, whatever I really vibe to get out of this green, I can achieve it. I can also reference back to another Sandnes Garn pattern if I really wanted to. So they have a few, and Sandnes Garn have a jelly bean green color, so they're commercially producing that color at the moment. I think it's slightly more neon than Ali's, which is totally okay. But as you can see, there are different and lots of options for me to think about. So that is how I went from this to, okay, I know what I'm making. I'm making this, and I am going to be absolutely making the Amy slipover. So that is the process on how I landed on my colours for the Explorer Knits and Fibres shop update for their Ireland collection. So hopefully that's given you a really good insight into a bit more of the behind the scenes detail that I work through before I land on colours as well as projects, particularly when it relates to hand-dyed yarn, from at least an Australian perspective, like hand-dyed US-based yarn, because the exchange rate is quite crippling at the moment. And so really being sure of and particular about what I was going to end up with was important to me. So let me know what you think. Thank you for sticking around, and I will catch you next time.